sparked by your talk. And as far as ideas are concerned, what I enjoyed so much about this last election, as bitter and difficult as it was the fact that there was activism for the first time in a long time. It's because a lot of people said the only way to make things happen is to be involved. Now, this energy is here right now, and your network, your public network that you're advocating, is going to be realized through the schools. Even when you're talking about Lady Tech, which is a high school, I will suggest that based on the internet, based on the fact that I went to your site earlier today, that is your tool. And based on, I mean, you talk about the bloggers, but there are blogs that do contribute. And there are stations, I mean, I myself have both a blog and a YouTube channel. And I mean, granted, I'm passing along stuff and it's therapy for me. I'm, going through cancer, so it's just, it's a way for me to share my experience. And, hopefully, of course, I'm going to live through it. It's just that by living through it, other people can learn how to do it. But the idea is that there's so much activism with kids in grammar school now that are technically adept, and that is where you're going to get your ideas from. I mean, there's a reason that children are born is to teach us, and that is where your ideas are going to come from. That is where your activism is going to come from. And by continuing what you're doing, like for example, this is all recorded right now. Is that correct? Right. Okay. Good. What you can do is, of course, pass along, and everybody here can pass this recording to all your friends and your family, your neighbors, and anybody. What's so nice about it is that, even on Facebook, I mean, I'm getting friends from overseas, and it's like, I'm not the only Peter Lott Hefner. There's other Peter Lott Hefners. I'm not the musician in Germany, but
well, can I respond to something you brought up?
Okay.
Quickly, just because I think it's a point that we were sort of anticipating. Is that when we talk to people about the privatization of the airwaves, a lot of people say, well, so what? Most people these days are getting their information not from television, but not from radio, but from the internet, right? The internet is quickly becoming the premier information media of our time. I think that's, and apparently there have been some surveys done that have found that for young people, people 40 years of age or younger, that the internet is the preferred news source. And I guess my response to that is to simply say the control of the airwaves, whether it's in the hands of private corporations who operate their businesses for profit, or whether they're directly in the hands of the public, it really does matter, because one of the things that's happening with this broadcast spectrum that's been handed, the digital spectrum that's been handed over to television stations and radio stations to some degree, but to television stations, is they're being allowed to turn around and auction off that spectrum to telecommunications companies, or then using it to provide Wi-Fi access to the internet. So our access to the internet, increasingly, I would argue, is going to come via these very airwaves, except we're going to have to pay for that access. We're going to have to pay these private corporations to use the public airwaves to access the internet.
They're going to get us one way or another.
They're going to get us, and so one possible use, if you were to take some of that area, some of the spectrum that's just been given to commercial broadcasters, is if we were to have that, we could set up community Wi-Fi, right? If that were to revert to the public, you could use that to set up community wireless internet access all over the city of Chicago, all over the region, for free, right? I mean, we could use that spectrum however we want, and one use that a lot of people have suggested is to use that spectrum, at least some of that spectrum, for community wireless access, free access to the internet. Yeah.
You know, I have a couple of questions and comments. One is, the question being, realistically, what is the possibility of a independent network today? You know, because you alluded to and you talked about Pacifica and as far as radio goes, but looking over the whole broader spectrum. And then the other thing that I'm curious about is, you know, given this corporate consolidation that we've been witnessing that's going on, this gets to the issue about net neutrality.
Okay.
When we talk about the internet, you know, can you comment on those 2 points?
Why don't I, so the first question was...
we were talking about the possibility for a true independent...
Just how possible
Yeah,
is this truly independent, publicly controlled network of media? Just how,
and how would you envision that?
How
Okay.
possible is it?
how possible is it right now?
We've never tried, so I can't answer that question because we never even bothered trying to ask for one. That's the problem.
Well, this is the issue before us, I think.
Yeah, no, the odds are very long, but let me just say, if anyone studies the history of Pacifica Radio Network, which was a network that was started up by people who were conscientious objectors to World War II, who came out of the conscientious objectors camps and set up a listener-sponsored radio stations devoted to philosophical discussions, avant-garde jazz, and leftist, various kinds of leftist political viewpoints. The odds were against Pacifica, right, from the beginning, and it grew from a single station in San Francisco to five stations. They even survived bombings because the Pacifica affiliate in Houston, I think, had its antenna bombed twice. Their antenna was blown up. And so if they were able to survive that and construct what is a small but nevertheless thriving, community radio network, I think we could clearly do it. Especially if we could tap into some of this money that's been, that's been frittered away on digital television.
With regard to your net neutrality point also, I would not be surprised, don't be surprised if by the end of this year you not only get a net neutrality statute in the law, but there'll also probably be a low power FM law passed as well. So those are 2 of the brightest
let me
points
just
of hope.
clarify. Right, so there is going to be a new law that is going to basically create hundreds of new low-power FM licenses and make them available to community activists. They're going to be set aside for not-for-profit community and educational stations all over the country, including some in urban areas. And this has been the big problem, is that there have been low-power FM licenses, that this program has been around for a while, but most of the licenses were handed out to stations that were located in the middle of nowhere. And so now, for the first time, and I think Mitchell may know a little bit more about it, but now for the first time there will be stations available for broadcasters who want to start up a state, or licenses available for stations that want to broadcast in an urban area, including Chicago.
The last significant hurdle about this actually was just overcome Thursday, when House committee the House subcommittee that oversees matters regarding radio actually passed by a vote of 15 to 1 the law that actually would galvanize by a wide margin low power radio, FM radio in the United States. That was, all analysts say that was, including one of the people who voted for it, was a former broadcaster, it turns out. All authorities now say that that's probably going to pass probably within the year, or that's at least the best window. And chances are really good that it probably will happen. And in fact, President Obama has said that he will sign it because he was actually the sponsor of the legislation of that in the Senate. That hope springs eternal.
Mm-hmm. I just want to call on you in a moment. I just wanted to mention one more thing. This may not be the most popular statement I'll make tonight, but I'm going to try to make it as best as I can. Each one of these